Welcome to Beyond the Breakwater, where just beyond the crashing waves of fear, discomfort, and doubt lies the greatest potential for life transformation. We want to guide you into the open waters where the calculated risk you take becomes the turning point for you or your organization to thrive. So draw up your anchors and prepare for departure in this week's episode of Beyond the Breakwater. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Breakwater. Today is another really special episode. We've been talking in previous episodes about how you guys have been asking for blueprints. You want models, you want the nuts and bolts of all of the ministries that we're talking about. So we're kind of trying to provide just that by bringing in guests, and those guests being our ministry managers. So today I am joined with Ed, as always, and then Mike Sisson. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Mike is the manager of His Hands Auto, and we're kind of going to walk you guys through. We want Mike to kind of be a window into that ministry. So we'll talk with Mike and just hear his story and how he came to find the garage, his favorite stories that happen at the garage, and then we'll spend a second episode more on the nuts and bolts, similar to how we did stuff with the Bridge Food Center. So I would also encourage listeners, like if you guys are not mechanics, if you're not car people, I am also not a car person. I don't understand anything about cars, which is why I have my dad and brothers to help with things. So this is all still really interesting stuff, I would say, for listeners to hear of just what a church can be, what a church can do to be mobilized to serve their community and build bridges into the community to connect with people who would never walk into the doors of a church. But today we'll just be talking about how we've been able to love and serve people through the need of transportation. So Mike, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. Okay. Could you kind of just bring listeners up to speed, like what's been your work history and how did you even come to find Messiah and or the garage?
Okay. Well, I come from a family of automotive people. My great-grandpa was one of the first people in Saginaw to convert a horse stable over to a tire repair shop. So it's in the blood. That's on my mom's side. And on my dad's side, my grandfather started auto part stores and worked with my dad. When I came of age, I started working in auto part stores, and I've managed probably about 14 different auto part stores. I've done sales for different auto part stores through the Lower Peninsula of Michigan for 30-some years. I've just always been in the industry, and it's always fascinated me. I've always loved the people in it, and I've been in several cities and several different aspects of it, everything from body shop work to repair shop to sales side to auto parts store and parts supply, machine sales. I mean, I've been in the industry in just about every aspect you can think of.
So how long were you working in the industry before then coming to His Hands?
I would say, probably from the early 90s all the way up until about 4 years ago. Okay. I came aboard with His Hands 4 years ago. Okay. I had dealt with them really just about since they opened. Okay. When they were looking for pricing on different equipment, things like that, I actually received a call when I was at CarQuest, and it was out of my sales territory, so I didn't respond to it. I forwarded it off to another coworker who had the territory, and he goes, "Oh, they're just a church. How much am I going to get out of them?" And he never showed up. So I'm not sure if I ever even shared that with you.
No, didn't hear that story.
But yep, I worked for CarQuest for quite a few years. I then took a position with Auto Value and ran the Auto Value in Midland for about 8 years. Wow. And those 8 years I dealt directly with Wes, who was the former manager, and Ed at the shop. And when Wes left, I kind of took the opportunity to talk to Ed and say, "Hey, would you consider me?" So.
Okay, so you knew the position was open, and it's interesting. I didn't know that you had worked with Messiah and His Hands as early as when it opened, which was 11 years ago,
11
right?
years ago.
Okay.
11 years ago.
Yeah. So that's really cool to kind of see the sprinklings of that happen over time to then move into your heart being stirred to reach out. So
Right.
walk through that process. Like what led you to want to apply or see if it was something that you could be employed through?
Well, I've always had kind of a good Christian background. I was born Catholic. I was on the Knights of Columbus. Did a lot of charitable work through them. I had always had a good, you know, our employees were all fairly good Christian based with different denominations and everything. We always tried to help our customers, wherever we were. We always held each other accountable for things that we were doing in our private life. And really, it wasn't that big of a leap. I saw the good that was getting done with the church and different missional things. And I was actually excited about the opportunity to come aboard.
That's really cool. We always talk about in all of the different ministries that have been launched, especially as we have more people and listeners coming to visit and tour the facilities. They're always like noticing like, okay, there's a lot of manpower to this place. Like, where do you find the Mikes? Where do you find the Marshas? Where do all of these people come from? And even just yesterday, I was talking with someone who visited a couple days ago, and she was like, it kind of just hit me that you guys don't start with like putting your youth ministry person to work out in a garage and now everybody's just like overworked, but it's like you raised up people to come alongside you as you start these ministries and as God invites you to start them in your community. Mm-hmm. So it's cool to hear how like that was you being raised up. You came from the industry, you knew it well, and now you're able to kind of oversee that as your ministry.
Before I came aboard, I kind of put the fleece out, if you will. I was unsure. I had a pretty comfortable spot. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure if I wanted to come up. Well, I knew I wanted to come aboard, but I didn't know if it was the right thing. So mm-hmm. I several occasions asked God, if this is the right move, I want this to happen. Mm-hmm. And then it would happen. Yeah. And then I would get in my own head again, and I'd ask again, and something else would happen. The final straw was one of the customers said, "Oh, that's a big place, and there's so many different, cogs and wheels and everything to it. It's just it would probably be a monster to work for." Well, at the time, that Monster.com commercial was out there, and I turned my car off, and that commercial came on, and it goes, "Go to Monster," and then the radio cut off. So I just thought it was kind of funny that one of our customers called it the whole workings of it a monster, and then the radio just says, "Go to Monster."
And somehow that was intriguing to you.
It was just one of those things. It was the Holy
there.
Spirit slapping me in the backside of the head saying, "Quit tempting things and just go."
Huh. That's really funny. So is it everything you expected it to be?
It was. With previous employers, well, it is, but it isn't. Okay. With previous employers, I had done things with Work First. What's
that?
That is a program where there will be money available to people who are in the welfare system to fix cars.
Okay.
So I kind of had an idea of maybe some of the clientele that we were going to be working with and some of the hoops that you'd have to go through to get financing. But really the loving environment of the church was a big change. There was way more focus on you're here to help the people more than you're here for bay turnaround or you're here for profit or anything like that. It was make sure the people are taken care of. Start with your employees. Make sure the employees are taken care of. Make sure the customers are taken care of. Make sure the clients are taken care of. Just make sure, the people are well loved.
Yeah. So how do you navigate ministry in a place that you're also trying to sustain it through money and funding and all of that? Because ministry takes a lot of time. It's not something where you can just, someone's life is falling apart, be it either a client or an employee, and just say, get back to work, or I don't have time to deal with this right now. Minutes turn into hours. So how has that been for you?
Well, any other business, time is money. So leave that at home. Don't talk about it here. Just go where this is different. We will make sure our employees are taken care of. We will go above and beyond to make sure they are taken care of. The customers and clients, we really cater to them to make sure that they are in a good, safe transportation. That it starts goes and stops the way it should. And really, if someone wants to talk, we stop what we're doing and we talk. You know, if it's a customer who is going through a rough patch, if it's a client that has a situation that they need to talk to or vent about, we always stop what we're doing and have a good talk.
Can you talk to a little bit just to give people an idea? Because I think maybe explain the garage briefly and who you're serving. And then, I kind of have a follow-up question to that.
Okay. Well, the garage is a full-service garage. We have room for 10 bays. We use 8 of them. 2 of them are more for, our use with different equipment. But we service 8 cars at a time in the garage, and it's not uncommon for us to be working on cars in the parking lot as well. We will do anything and everything on a vehicle other than body shop work, and I don't have enough manpower to rebuild transmissions. We'll exchange them, we'll R&R them, but we don't rebuild them. But pretty much anything, chassis, suspension, brakes, engine work, anything's fair game. I have a really great crew, master certified techs, and they're willing to tackle anything.
And so the customers you're serving, like you serve both full paying customers and then you serve clients, which we'll get into all of the structure of that in the second episode. But you're working with kind of talk about like the state of the car that people are bringing in.
Sure. Like you said, we have the full paying retail customers, and then we have the clients that may need some help with payment. One thing with the clients, a lot of times they're tight on budget, so they might hear one noise, but they ignore it because the car's still starting going, and it may go until there's 3 or 4 things wrong. So now what would have been a small bill if they'd have taken care of it right at the beginning might end up being a larger bill, and now it puts them into a tailspin pretty quick because a lot of them are living paycheck to paycheck. A lot of them don't have a whole lot of disposable income, and now I'm telling them that they're going to have a several $100 bill, and it's amazing how fast it can go from them talking normal to them worried about money, worried about making their rent, worried about losing their job. It can tailspin pretty quick.
Yeah. Ed, could you explain the story of the woman who like went from 0 to 60, just to give listeners an idea of like, this is how quickly this can escalate?
Yeah, I was really surprised. I mean, just we were off campus one day, and I was just talking to somebody, and she said how much car repair is really needed. And I said, well, why is that? She said, well, I'm scared to death. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, if I hear a squeak in my car, I'm scared that I'm going to lose my car. And if I lose my car, I'm probably going to lose my job. If I lose my job, I'm probably not going to be able to stay in the place where I'm living. I'm going to get evicted. If I get evicted, I'm probably going to lose my kids again. And if I lose my kids again and I'm jobless and I'm homeless and I don't have a car, I'm probably going to wind up back on drugs. And I said, oh my goodness, you go through that process when you hear a squeak? She said, I do. And I said, how long does it take you to go from, where you are right now to jobless, homeless, and being back on drugs? She said about 3 seconds. And that was horrifying for me. And I said, well, then what we need to do is make sure that we're a place that you can come in when you hear a squeak, and we're not going to charge you for it. Just come in, let us look at your car, and let you know that it's safe. So you're okay. We don't have to do anything. Keep driving it.
Yeah. I always think like any day your car breaks down, like that's just a bad day. Some people have the means of fixing it, but then it's like when your entire livelihood is on the line because you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're working multiple jobs, you're already making trade-offs of like, should I get my car fixed? We'll just turn the radio up louder because I can't afford to deal with that right now. I'm already having to like make cuts to the groceries. My kids can't see a doctor because it costs money. Like all of these things are choices that are going on in people's minds every day, those that we're serving as clients. So yeah, I just want to give people an idea. Like this is what people are thinking. If you are not in this position, just know that there are people out there that are like this. Okay, and now talk about the ministry to your staff too, and then I want to jump into some of your favorite stories from the garage.
Sure. Well,
And two, without like disclosing too much or like giving names and stuff, but some of the ministry goes to your staff.
I've got names,
and why is
addresses,
that?
social security numbers, nothing too much. No, ministering to the staff, we start every morning with a devotional, and we will usually, after the devotional, have some time set aside for about 15 minutes just to kind of fill each other in on what's going on in our lives and if anyone needs anything. And we all share during that time, and we are pretty tight-knit over that.
And these are people that tend to need like a second chance in life, right? Or
yes,
okay.
We do have several people that have come to us either through, I'm trying to think of the term for it.
Parole officer.
Parole officer forwards.
Community service.
Community service is the term I'm looking for. Juvenile hall will send people over. Parole officers will send people over. And a lot of times they'll start as a volunteer and they'll work off their service hours. And then a lot of them will stay on to volunteer after their service hours are up just because they like the mission and they like helping people. And then a few of them have actually turned into employees. So
That's incredible. So it's like, just to give people an understanding, like this is the dynamic. There are a lot of different personalities going on in the garage. This is not just like your typical garage where you're in and out, or customers, all right, I'll see you in a few hours. It's like a lot of our customers stay on site. Clients stay on site, right?
Most of the clients stay on site either in the office or they will go up to the church and wait in the church just because they don't have necessarily a lot of family in town to pick them up, and they don't really have any other options. Their car is their only means of transportation, so when their car's down, they are stuck wherever the car is.
Mike, maybe you can just share, like we had an employee not too long ago that was in prison and got his certifications in prison.
Yes.
But had never worked on cars. Maybe share just a little bit about what that was like, bringing him on. How did he come here to the garage?
Yes, I believe McFord gave him our information, and he came in with a resume, and we did hire him in. It was a bit of a learning curve. There was a lot of ebbs and flows to it. He did work hard to get into a better place, and then he kind of fell off the wagon a couple of times. I believe we planted some seeds, and hopefully they'll grow in the future.
So Mike, kind of get into, what are some of your favorite stories? Like what keeps you at the garage? Because I can just hear the mission in your heart and why you joined, and it's not what your 25 plus whatever years of experience you had working at outside of a ministry. This is very different. So talk about some of those.
It is. Outside of the garage, I was real confident on my abilities. And now I realize I'm working for God's garage, not my garage. I had a gentleman show up. He had a wheelchair van that the door was shorting out. He would be driving down the road and the door would just randomly open. It was the back slider doors. And
that's a problem.
Yeah, just a little bit.
It's a big problem.
It just makes life a little more adventurous from time to time. But, it would just randomly open on him. And after he thought it was an electrical issue, the electrics were actually working fine, but the bottom of the door was rusted out. And the sensors in the door didn't know if the door was open or shut, so it would send a close signal. Well, if the door is already shut, it would open it. So we figured, okay, we need a door. They've only made 30 million Dodge Caravans. There's got to be a door available somewhere. So I'm checking every salvage yard in the state. I went down to Ohio, Indiana, Illinois. I'm not having any luck. Talked with the people. They started looking all over the place. No one had that style of door van. Van door. And after about a week, we just kind of huddled up and we're like, okay, I've tried everything I can try. You've tried everything you can try. Let's just pray about it and see what happens. We sat down, we prayed about it. We said we'd make a decision one way or another what we were going to do within a day. At 3:00 that day, senior services called me. Hey, we've got a unique situation. We know you can take cars in and rebuild them for people. We've got one that we don't know if it'll fit anything you do because it's set up as a wheelchair van. It's not set up as a passenger van. Yeah, and I just like took a step back. It's like, really? Wow.
It's like, you can't make this stuff up.
I mean, it was just unreal.
Yeah.
To this date, that's the only wheelchair van that's ever been donated.
Wow.
I called them up and I'm like, hey, I think we have a way out of your situation. So we are able to get them into that other van and get them in a good spot. Found out that they were expecting and growing their family, and they really needed the vehicle. So it really worked out good for them.
It's pretty amazing when you think about 11 years running, we've never gotten a van with a wheelchair.
I didn't know that either. That's cool.
And then that very same day, somebody donates a wheelchair van. That's the miracle of the garage, that we watch those kinds of miracles a lot.
Yeah. And it's just a privilege, I think, that the church can like stand in the middle of that. Like we've talked about brokering as a principle of like you take somebody who has something and someone who needs something, and you can stand right in that middle and be the one that just makes the interaction happen. And it's hearing those stories. It's like that stuff that you don't hear that's miraculous, and only God could do something like that.
I wonder what it's like for the family who got the van. Like every day they're like driving in a miracle van. Like this has never happened before in 11 years, and it happened to them. I bet that's a really special feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. All right. What are some of your other favorite stories? What else has happened out there?
Oh, okay. A lot of them revolve around the dealership and getting people in.
Can you explain the dealership part of it really quick?
Sure. The dealership, we have we're 501c3, so we can take in donated vehicles and give the person who donates the vehicle a receipt for potentially savings on their taxes. We then look at the vehicle. Our goal is to not have them perfect, but have them be able to start, go, and stop, and be safe. Usually people don't donate a vehicle because it's perfect. Usually they've had it for a while and something broke and they decide to buy something new. So we figure out what it needs to get it safe. We'll fix that, and then we'll make it available to people in need through other agencies or through cars that come in that might get condemned through our shop. We make it available to them for whatever we have into it.
So what's maybe like an average price of car that is sold through the dealership?
Average price through Blue Book would be $4,500 to $5,000.
Okay. What do you guys sell it for?
We sell it usually between $300 and $700.
Okay. Wow. That's a huge discount.
Yeah.
What's the cheapest car? Most affordable. We'll put it that way. What's the most affordable car you've ever sold?
The most affordable car I ever sold was, I received a call from the Veterans Administration, and they said they had a gentleman who was living in an Oldsmobile behind Walmart, and his car won't move. They had enough funds to tow the vehicle to us, but they asked if we could help get the car running for him because he didn't have any money. I told him to get the car here and we would look at it. The whole subframe of the vehicle that holds the motor and transmission up had fallen to the ground, and he had actually ran his motor over. So when he said that it wasn't moving, he was not exaggerating. The car was not moving. So he goes, well, how long do you think it'll be before that's fixed? It's like, we're not fixing that. That's too far gone. So, he was concerned because that was where he was living. He was actually physically living in that vehicle. I had the week before, I had someone donate a vehicle. It was in really good shape. I think we had just a few things into it, a couple engine parts and an oil change. So I told him, I said, I realize budget's a concern. Do you have any money to put toward this vehicle? I said, I'm going to make you a heck of a deal, but, what can you put toward it? He goes, well, I woke up this morning and there was a woman knocking on my window. And she said she was praying in the morning, and God told her that her walking around money in her pocket, she was going to meet someone that needed it more than her. So she goes, I see you're sleeping in your vehicle. I think you need this more than me. It was a $10 bill. She goes, I wish I could give you more, but that's what I have. He bought some food from Walmart, went back out, and his car wouldn't move. So he had $2.27 left in his pocket. He goes, will you take $2.27 for that car? And he kind of looked down thinking there's no way.
Right.
I said, it's sold. So we discounted that car down to $2.27, and we covered the Secretary of State fees for him. And for $2.27, he drove away in a working vehicle.
You really cannot make this stuff up. Like,
No.
it's wild. So
We
can
better
you-
not give everybody Mike's phone number because
Yeah.
they'll all be calling and say, I have $2.27 in my pocket. Can I have a car?
So explain, like, why do we charge? Like, why wouldn't you just look at that situation and be like, dude, you got it for free. Like, this is on us. Why would you take the $2.27?
Dignity is involved in it. If someone pays for it, they own it. It's theirs. A lot of times, if you do something completely free, they don't necessarily take ownership for it. It's just a bonus that they fell into. And from what I've seen, if you do something for free, they'll turn around and they'll sell it, and they'll pay bills with it, or they'll just pocket the money. Where if even $2 or $5, if they put toward that car, they drive that car for a year or two, or as long as they can.
We actually made that mistake early on when the garage opened that we would get a car in, fix it up. Somebody needed it, we would give it to them. And then they were selling their cars. But we've noticed over the years we stopped doing that because we noticed if somebody has even as low as $2.27, they'll never sell it because
Yeah.
they bought it
Yep.
with everything they had.
And I feel like that is like kind of a proud moment. Like, I just think of something as simple as thrifting, where it's like, I thrifted this and I got this sweater for $1. Can you believe it? And it just means something to someone when it's like you can pay and the transaction is done. It's a done deal. You don't owe anybody. It's yours. Yeah. So what other stories? I know you came with a couple today.
Yes. Yep. There are always good stories. One that's kind of sticking out. We had a client who had a premature child. Doctors were not sure how long the child was going to live, and said that spend as much time with the baby as you can because no guarantee. Her car was broke down, so she couldn't go back and forth to the hospital. So the church actually got involved and helped fix her car. Wasn't long after that, she actually got into an accident. She calls up, tells me her whole faith structure is just very low because everything that's going on in her life, she just is very, very in a tough spot. So we talked quite a bit, and we were actually able to get her into a different vehicle so she could make the trip back and forth to the doctors with her kid. And that was 2.5 years ago, and the child is still with us and is still doing as good as he can.
Wow.
So,
Those are heart-wrenching when you just have somebody like that. But isn't that when God does the greatest work, and the church has the privilege of serving somebody when they're at a really low spot, and you get to step in a way and do more than just pray. Like, how can we help you through this? What do you need? And what do you need from us that we're able to do? And using the resources that the garage had to really help somebody.
Yeah. Every time I hear stories like this, I'm just like, these are folks that you would have never gotten the chance to meet hadn't the mission of the garage been a prevalent thing in like how you lead the ministry and how you lead your employees in that ministry and mission. And like, we would have never gotten to hear that if it didn't exist. And so it's like, I really hope that people who are listening, like pastors, church leaders, people who have the ability to say like, let's do something, they hear these stories and they're like, okay, I don't care what the obstacle is. I'm going to push past everything that I possibly can so that we can make this a reality, so we can be a part of stories like this, so that we can continue saying yes to people that God bring us every single day. What do you say? God breaks cars every day?
God breaks cars every day to bring them to us
Yeah.
so that we can love them and introduce them to him. I think the two of you should tell the story because we have a special young lady who has cancer that came into our midst. And I think it's both of your stories because both of you got to know this family quite well. And so I think it'd be fun to have you guys share that story because you really got involved with the family.
Yeah. Mike, you started off because I
Sure.
kind of jumped in a little bit into it.
Sure. Cancer Services called, said that there was a 5-year-old who had cancer. needed help. Their vehicle was down. Needed help getting a working vehicle so they could take her to her treatments, and wanted to know if we would help. They did have a small budget. The car needed more work than what the budget was, so I told them definitely we'll take them under our wing and we'll help them, and we will take care of the vehicle as long as they're going back and forth for treatments.
Mm-hmm.
So we repaired the car and got them in a functioning car.
Mm-hmm.
We had to do a bunch of work to it, and that's kind of what we do.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how I even got introduced to them. I don't know if it was like you had reached out to me and just kind of explained what was going on, and they just needed somebody to care for them. And
well, they had a fundraiser with their child's name and everything like that, and they had some like extra things left over.
That's right.
And they were very thankful for the vehicle working, so they wanted to come in and tell everyone at the church that, and they passed out like stickers with the names on it and everything.
Yep. I remember that they brought in like this manila envelope, and it had like all the wristbands of stickers, and the little 5-year-old, first thing I was like, hey, like, are you looking for like somebody here? Because I didn't know entirely what they were there for. And she immediately, she didn't say a word. She just held up the sticker and gave it to me, and then like did the thing that all kids do where it's like they just hold out their hands to you and you're like, oh my gosh, my heart just melted. Right. And then they just want to give you a hug. And so I like knelt down, and she gave me a hug, and we were just like very connected. Like she felt very comfortable with me for whatever reason. And so every time that they needed to come back to get repairs, they would always stop, and we would have lunch together and sit in Journey's coffee house, and we'd grab pizza or something from Journey's and just talk and listen to their story and listen to what their life was like. And just hearing the situation that they found themselves in. Like the mom was working and the dad was not, though the dad wanted to be working, but because they were receiving, I always forget, Medicare, Medicaid? Public aid. Okay, so they keep it capped on like what the restrictions are for what you can be making at an income. And so dad was like, I can't work because the second I make $1 more and there's $1 above whatever that cap is that we're restricted for our daughter's treatment, then we lose all ability for her to be treated, and we cannot risk like losing her treatment. And so
they would lose insurance with the state.
Yes.
That's what they were really concerned about.
Yes.
And then how would they pay for the treatments?
Exactly. Yes, they would. Yes. And so it's like they were just trapped. He said exactly that, like, I'm trapped and I can't get out of it. So the church kind of rallied, and we were like, all right, what can we do to help this family out if we can't give him a job, or we can't, put money in his bank account or whatnot? And the church just stepped up, and they gave gift cards for Meyer and just going out to eat and treating their family really well. And
not just a few gift cards.
Oh, I think it was what was it?
Over 100. We
it was over 1,000.
Over
100. That's like my math. That's normally what I do.
It was fun to invite the church just to be a part of this, and it's so rare. I mean, just going back to, our listeners have heard just principles that, we charge for everything we do. This is one of those situations where they were unable to take care of the car, to take care of their daughter. And so that promise to them, we made a promise. We'll take care of the car. You take care of your daughter.
Which last time I talked with the mom too, they were getting ready to ring the bell for the daughter.
Really?
Yes. Yep.
That's incredible, because it's been, 2 years? It's been a while. We've been taking care of their car for quite a while. How many times do you think you've repaired their car?
At least 5.
Okay.
They've been in with different things that it's needed. So,
and what a great thing for churches to just say, this is a way that we can step in and help families that really help.
Yeah.
In a way that really made a difference in their life.
Yeah. And I hope listeners are hearing this, like these stories, and like are being brought outside of their own lives, are being brought out of their routines and their comfortability to know that like people are hurting, people have a need, like transportation is a need. And so I'd like you to share at least one more story that you kind of briefly shared with us of the woman who came in just the other day. Do you know which one I'm referring to?
Is that the mother of 8?
Well, I don't know about that one.
Okay.
No, this is the
how
person.
She was going to pay for her car.
Oh, okay. Yes. A woman came in. She had scheduled an oil change and said that there were some other issues with the car and wanted us to check the car over. We checked it out. Retail price on the car repair would have been around $850. Running through some discounts and through some different things that we do, we got it down to $340. You know, she goes, well, is it okay if I take a few minutes? I have to check on some things. So she grabs her phone and she goes out and she's just going through, and she comes back up to the counter and she goes, all right, I have a way to get the money. And I'm like, okay, I will get the parts ordered and everything. And she goes, well, I can get the money. I am going to have to move in with someone for about a week.
So when I hear that, like we've kind of talked about something like this before with the housing ministry and having a woman say, like, I have to, her words, like, prostitute myself out to pay for just basic needs. Is that what was happening in this situation?
That was the situation, unfortunately.
Okay, she confirmed that?
Yes, she told me that that's what her plan was.
That's heartbreaking, Mike.
It is.
What could you do? What did you
Well,
do
I
to
knew
help
she
her?
had brought enough money to do the oil change. So I discounted her bill down to what the oil change cost was. And I said we would take care of the repairs. And I encouraged her not to do anything else, that we were going to cover the repairs for.
So it was an $850 bill you said?
It was an $850 retail bill.
And you marked it down to $340.
We marked it down to $340.
And then you marked it down how far? To what?
$34 and change.
To $34 so that she could be safe and she wouldn't have to do anything that...
Did she call off the arrangements she had made?
She said she was going to. I don't know if she did or not, but I would hope. The hope is that she did.
Yeah.
That's heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
Just when you hear that people do whatever they have to do. And this isn't one of those great opportunities. I mean, I hope people hear this, that the church can do what nobody else can do. The church can step in to say, how do we help you so that you don't have to put yourself in situations and compromise values, morals, yourself?
And this is not the first time we've heard this.
No.
And we live in Midland, Michigan. Like, I feel like anybody from Midland is like, nothing bad happens here. And it's like, if this is the scenario for people that are in Midland, like how much else is happening beyond Midland, how much is happening in Saginaw, how much is happening in Grand Rapids, in Detroit. Like these are people's stories all over. So I know we're coming up, we've kind of pushed past our normal time on episode length, but this has just been an amazing conversation. I do want to hear one more story because you mentioned the mom with 8 kids, and I feel like anyone who was listening was like, wait, but now I have to hear what happened with the mom with 8 kids.
What happened to my mom?
Well, it's a husband and wife, and they have several children between them. And she came in, and she goes, all right, I have a computer issue with my car. It is a random memory issue. And I have a quote from a competitor for around $1,100. I just want to get a second opinion on it. So Jonathan, our lead tech, he is very good with electrical, and he's looking at it, and there were 4 codes in there, all 4 different modules on the car losing memory. And it's rare to have one, much less 4 of them acting up at the exact same time. Not going to say it's impossible, it's just not probable. So he's looking at it. He goes through the wire harness. He finds a broken wire, and he finds a battery cable that's broke. He repairs them, puts it back together, goes out there, we told her what we were thinking. Went out there, we fixed that car for $24.50.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
Where that's the other incredible. Garage saw the codes and just said, oh, that's the codes, we got to change it.
Yeah.
So
you reduced her bill from $1,100 to $24.
Yes.
That's incredible, Mike. Thanks for the ministry that you're doing for the community, serving a lot of people. So real quick, how many cars has the garage worked on over these last 11 years?
A few.
At least
an
10.
Approximate.
An approximate, I'm willing to bet we work on probably about 130 cars a month. So
over the last 11 years, I think you've told me we're coming up on about 19,000 cars that the garage has worked on
that
in this
sounds
time
about
frame.
Right. Yes.
19,000 lives, at least.
Yes. And then you talked about the dealership. So the community is incredibly generous. So how many cars
We've
would you
had
say?
approximately 558 cars go through the dealership.
That's how many cars have been donated. So over
Yes.
11 years, that's about 1 car a week on average that somebody is kind enough, gracious enough to say, I'd like you to have my car so that you can help change somebody else's life. It's amazing.
Yes, it's an awesome place to work.
So we normally end the podcast by giving some listeners something they can do before they go. Mike, I'm going to put you on the spot and just say, like, if there is somebody who is listening to this who might be thinking of starting a ministry like this, how would you encourage them?
Do something. If it's just get a group of guys together and help some people with oil changes, if it's to just team up with a church, and if they know of a veteran or a single mom who needs a set of brake pads put on their vehicle, just start with step one. Don't think, I need to have the big garage with all the equipment and the lifts and everything. Just find out what the need is and take the first step.
That's great. That's a really great piece of encouragement. Mike, it's been amazing having you on the podcast this week and just hearing your story and hearing that window into the ministry. Thank you for what you do. Like I said, people ask, where do you find the Mikes? Where do you find the Marshas? Where do you find people to run these? And you are doing incredible work, and I can't imagine anybody else in the position. So I'm just thankful that God has you in the season here with us doing the ministry. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, we will see everybody next week. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Beyond the Breakwater, a podcast of Elevate Community Ministries. Don't let the conversation stop here. You can email us at hello@beyondthebreakwater.org. We would love to chat with you, answer questions, plan a visit, and help you take your next step. We'll see you next week.